Okay, so let's just get right into this. I want you to look at the calendar. Tomorrow is January 19th, 2026. And I don't know about you, but if you have been paying any attention to the general vibe of the world, it feels like there's uh, a palpable shift in the air. It's not just the usual start of a work week. It feels heavier or maybe sharper.
Sharper is definitely
Yeah.
the right word.
Yeah.
It feels like the machinery of the world, or maybe just our own internal wiring, is clicking into a completely different gear. You can almost hear it.
Exactly. So for today's deep dive, we are pulling from the source material provided by Tarot by Heisey. We're focusing specifically on the astrological forecast for tomorrow, January 19th. But I want to be clear right off the bat, we aren't here to tell you if you're going to, meet a tall, dark stranger.
No, not at all. This isn't a horoscope you'd find in the back of a magazine.
The mission today is to unpack what the sources describe as this massive, complex convergence of energies. The material basically frames tomorrow as a, quote, systems update for human interaction and logic. It's like the operating system of reality is forcing a patch download whether we're ready or not.
That's such a great analogy, because usually we think of astrology as, like, feelings or moods. But the context here is surprisingly technical. It isn't about random events. It's a rare alignment, where all these disparate pieces, mental, emotional, structural, they all come together to form what the source calls a coherent whole.
Coherent whole. I like
Right.
that. The vibe is a mix of intense mental clarity, some really serious relationship audits, and this shift toward revolutionary progress. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So let's break this down systematically. The first big piece is what I'm calling the mental switch. The source highlights Mercury trine Uranus.
Yes, this is the spark.
So before we get into the effect, let's just define the terms. Mercury is the mind, communication, right? The processor. But what happens when it hits a trine with Uranus?
So a trine is a harmonious angle. It means flow, ease. And Uranus is the planet of disruption, innovation, shock. It's the awakener. And normally disruption is chaotic, but because this is a trine, it's smooth. Imagine you've been banging your head against a wall over some problem for weeks, and then you just wake up and the answer is just there.
So it's the ultimate light bulb moment.
It's the light bulb moment on steroids. The source describes this as the brain suddenly spotting inefficiencies we've just been tolerating out of habit. You're looking at your daily routine or some workflow at your job, and you suddenly see the glitch. You just think, why on earth have I been doing it this way for 5 years?
That's so interesting because we usually cling to our routines, for safety. But the source says we're being pushed to try something out of left field.
It's explicitly urging us to look for unusual signals.
Yeah.
If you're someone who sticks to the tried and true, this energy is demanding you break out of that shell. It's saying the old way isn't just boring, it's obsolete. It wants you to act on the weird idea, the one you'd normally just dismiss.
But here's where it gets really interesting for me, because that kind of idea usually just fizzles out. But this isn't just a fleeting thought. The source connects this mental spark to a massive background event happening on the very same day. Saturn in Pisces is completing its final sextile to Uranus in Taurus. Now, Saturn is the taskmaster, right?
Totally. Saturn is structure, reality, the walls of the house. It's gravity.
And Uranus, like we said, is the rebel. And usually the rebel and the taskmaster hate each other. They're natural enemies.
They do. They're usually at war. Saturn wants to build a fence. Uranus wants to tear it down. But a sextile is a supportive aspect, an opportunity. So what we're seeing here is the rebel and the architect sitting down at the same table and actually agreeing on the blueprints. This is that moment where the disparate pieces come together. It's no longer just brainstorming, it's structure meeting innovation.
So practically speaking, if I have that wild idea tomorrow, the energy actually supports building it. It's not just a daydream.
Precisely. It's the synthesis. The source notes, this is the day where things form that coherent whole. So for you, the takeaway is to look for those aha moments, but take them seriously. They're signals about how to fix what is broken in a real, tangible way. It's the difference between inventing a flying car in your head and actually figuring out the engineering to make the engine work.
I love that. Engineered magic. But, of course, we aren't just brains in jars. We have hearts, messy emotions. And reading through the material, it suggests that while our heads are getting this upgrade, our hearts are going under a microscope.
Which brings us to the next major aspect. Venus conjunct Pluto.
Relationships under a bright light. That sounds, honestly, a little ominous.
It is incredibly intense. Think about it. Venus rules love, values what we attract. Pluto is the planet of the underworld, transformation, power, truth. A conjunction means they are sitting right on top of each other. Their energies are fused in a pressure cooker.
Yeah, the source says, superficial alliances don't survive this energy. That feels like a warning label on a bottle.
It is a warning label, but it's a necessary one. This energy is all about deep intimacy versus just superficiality. Think about how much of modern life is based on pleasantries or networking for leverage. We smile, we nod, but do we really mean it?
Or even in dating, the whole whoever cares less wins game. That whole aesthetic where you pretend you don't have feelings just to keep the upper hand.
Exactly. And the source is very clear that strategy fails. It fails catastrophically under this influence. Pluto demands the truth. It digs up the basement. If any relationship relies on avoidance or pretending, the cracks are going to show.
So power dynamics become visible.
Painfully visible. You see who's holding the leverage. You see where the honesty is missing. This applies to everything. Celebrity culture, brands, consumer trends. We might see public figures getting called out for a fundamental lack of authenticity. It's an X-ray of our connections.
So the challenge is just radical honesty. But that's terrifying for a lot of people.
It is. But the flip side, and this is the good news, is that this energy powerfully draws people into relationships or creative projects that are authentic. If you are real, the magnetic pull is massive. If you're faking it, it's going to feel almost repellent.
Okay, so head gets an upgrade, heart gets an audit. It really feels like we're stripping away the fluff.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the biggest seasonal shift in the source material. The sun enters Aquarius. This kicks off a month-long cycle starting tomorrow, January 19th.
The Great Aquarius Shift.
The source defines this vibe shift with a really catchy phrase, moving from performance to principles. I want to dig into that. What does that actually mean?
It's profound. Think about where the sun just was. Capricorn. Capricorn energy is about achievement, status, how things look, the performance of success.
The perfect LinkedIn profile, the suit, the title.
Exactly. External. Aquarius changes the channel entirely. It doesn't care about the status symbol. It cares about the system itself. It doesn't care if you're the CEO. It cares if the company actually solves a problem. The source says we're moving away from needing to be liked and moving toward being accurate.
Accurate. That is a cold word for human behavior, isn't it? It sounds almost robotic.
It can feel cold, yeah. But think of it as scientific. It's about constructive change. The focus reroutes to systems, innovation, community. The motto becomes, we before me, it asks. Does this work for the group? Is this efficient? Is this true?
Right, from individual glory to collective progress. But this raises a question, and the source actually flags it. How do we do that without losing our humanity? If we're just focused on the system, don't we lose the individual?
That is the risk. The source has a specific warning here. This has to be measured progress, not reckless. We must grow without losing our empathy. Aquarius can love humanity, but, hate humans, if that makes sense.
I noticed the source says, work for change without repeating the problems we want to fix. That seems key. It's not just rebellion for rebellion's sake.
Exactly. Aquarius energy makes us want freedom from restrictions. We want to break confines. But the decisions have to be based on logic, not attachment or anger. It's not, I'm breaking this rule because I hate my boss. It's, I'm breaking this rule because it is obsolete, inefficient, and holding everyone back.
That distinction is everything. Rebellion with a cause? A logical cause.
Precisely. It's the difference between a riot and a revolution.
Okay, so to really help us visualize this, because systems update can feel a bit abstract, the source material includes this narrative called the StoryScope. I actually love when they do this. It gives us a picture to hold on to.
The StoryScope is very effective here. It moves us from theory to simulation.
So let's set the scene. We have a character named Juno. She's on a high observation deck looking down at a city. But she's not seeing traffic jams and chaos. She's seeing the city as a living network of flows.
This is the perfect metaphor for that Aquarius energy. The city isn't noisy or frantic. It's quietly reconfiguring itself. It's precise, deliberate, almost surgical.
And she's there with her team, Malik and Anna, looking at these holographic schematics. It's very sci-fi. And Malik says, it's like the city is learning.
That line gave me chills. The city is learning. But notice how it's learning. It's being guided by principles. Juno uses two phrases, efficiency with ethics and connection without chaos.
Efficiency with ethics. That's the dream, isn't it? Usually we think efficiency means cutting corners on ethics.
Right. Dump the waste in the river because it's cheaper. But in this vision, they are linked. True efficiency is ethical because waste and harm are inefficient. And there's this moment where the transit grids start reorienting, and Juno says something that I think is the quote of the episode. She says, "Irrelevance is a luxury we can't afford."
Oof. Let that sit for a second. Irrelevance is a luxury we can't afford. That feels like a direct shot at all the time-wasting stuff we do.
It perfectly encapsulates that Saturn-Uranus energy. We cannot afford to keep doing things the old way just because it's comfortable. The source says Juno sees shortcuts, redundancies, possibilities no one had considered before. She sees the empty space where we could be moving better.
And Anna, one of the team members, she has the human reaction. She says, this is destabilizing, all our old habits. They're irrelevant here. She's scared. And Juno just says, good.
Good. Such a stark response. But it's necessary. Growth isn't about comfort, it's about clarity. The story describes people moving in ways that are cooperative rather than competitive. That is the we over me shift in action.
It's a beautiful image, a city that just flows, no hoarding control, everyone participating.
It drives home the point that innovation thrives when the collective matters more than the individual. It's destabilizing, like Anna said. It feels shaky, but it leads to a cleaner, more efficient pattern.
So we have the mental switch, the relationship audit, the shift to principles. But there is one final ingredient we haven't touched on, and I think it's crucial because otherwise this all sounds very mechanical, very cold.
Yes. If we stop there, we are just robots optimizing a grid. We need to talk about the Sun sextile Neptune.
The question is, how do we navigate all this logical, structural change without just becoming cogs in a machine?
Enter Neptune. Neptune is the dream, intuition, spirit. It's the fog, but it's also inspiration. A sextile from the Sun to Neptune provides what the source calls intuition with common sense.
The source calls it rose-colored glasses in a good way, which is funny because usually we're told to take those glasses off to get real.
Right, usually it implies delusion. But here it means translating insight into something usable. It's about accessing a deeper knowing, and the source instructs us to work quietly and diligently.
That's interesting. With all this revolutionary, rebellious Uranus energy, you'd expect the advice to be, shout from the rooftops, tear it all down, when it says work quietly.
Because true insight doesn't always come with a bang. It's not about surprise revelations dropping from the sky. It's about giving yourself over to the process until the hidden design reveals itself. You have to be quiet enough to hear the pattern click into place.
Test driving our educated guesses. I like that phrasing. It feels scientific, but also intuitive.
Exactly. That's the balance. We can access that deeper knowing, that gut feeling, to make the mental switch. We aren't just using cold logic. We're using an intuitive logic. We're sensing the pattern before we can fully articulate it.
It sounds like the scientist who has a hunch before the data is fully processed. They know the answer is there. They just have to find the math to prove it.
That is exactly it. The marriage of the mystic and the mechanic.
So, putting it all together, tomorrow, January 19th, is a powerhouse. It's not just another Monday.
A total powerhouse. It's a pivot point.
Let's just recap this deep dive to make sure everyone has their marching orders. We've got Mercury and Uranus helping us spot inefficiencies so our brains are ready to think outside the box. We've got Venus and Pluto demanding radical honesty in our relationships. No more faking it.
And we have the Sun entering Aquarius, shifting the whole vibe from performance, trying to impress people, to principles, trying to build something that actually works.
And the Sun sextile Neptune reminds us to trust our intuition while we do the work. Don't ignore the hunch.
It's a complete package. If I were to give you one piece of advice based on all this, it would be to step back and observe patterns. Don't rush for approval right now. Rush for accuracy. Look at the systems in your life, your routine, your relationships, your work, and just ask, is this accurate? Is this efficient? Is this honest?
I love that. Rush for accuracy. That's going to stick with me. And here is a final provocative thought for you to mull over, inspired by Juno on her observation deck. Imagine your life is that city grid. Imagine you're standing on the balcony looking down at the traffic of your own day-to-day.
I like where this is going.
If the systems of your own life were reorienting themselves right now, just like in the story, what shortcut or redundancy has been hiding in plain sight? What is the one thing that, if you just fixed it, would change everything?
Yeah, it is the question. Irrelevance is a luxury we can't afford. So find what's irrelevant and let it go.
There it is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the energies of January 19th. We hope you find your hidden design.
See you next time.
Take care, everyone.